Hello, everybody. Welcome to Bill and Eamon's Bogus Hangout. I'm joined by Terry, who is going to introduce himself. Terry?
Terry Van Horn, international website builders, a few other things still working on.
We've got a time loop.
Yeah.
Sorry, I had a time loop going there. Another channel on YouTube.
Oh,
It was playing the. It's like Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure relived.
yeah.
Uh huh. So, RankBrain uses what they call word embeddings or word vectors to like map large corpuses of web pages, like 200 billion words. So there's a new patent from Google that adds a step to that. They add something they call semantic frames. And a semantic frame is where you put words in context, like buyer, seller, commercial transactions, like the words a car salesman might use when he tries to sell to a family a new car, or a waitress talking to customers at a restaurant talks about and uses words like tipping. A tipping in the context of a restaurant is something different than tipping when it comes to cars or cows.
Right. So it's starting to figure out those things too.
It adds context to that word vector approach,
Right.
which means that something like RankBrain will be even smarter. Because
That's very bad.
uh-huh. It's not a bad thing. I'm writing a blog post about it, and I think I've defined what frame semantics is twice and have two videos on it. They're from different perspectives, so I think that helps. Plus, I explain some of the words I used to use when I worked for the court that most people don't know in everyday context. Uh, like capias is a bench warrant, and attorney generals would file a piece of paperwork that was called a notice of nolle prosequi or nolle pros, and that would be something that would uh, they were saying they wouldn't prosecute a charge. So it's language that's specific to the criminal justice system, but outside of that, most people don't know what those words mean. And that's what using frame semantics does for something like a word vector approach, like RankBrain.
Interesting.
So if you have a site that deals within the context of a certain industry, like construction workers or musicians, and you use certain language in those that's more common to those industries in everyday mainstream conversation, Google can learn those better, can understand them, and use them for things like RankBrain to rewrite queries, which I think is a tremendous step. I think search is starting to grow up.
More and more context.
Yeah. The more context, the better. And, the knowledge graph was sort of a start to that. We weren't just matching words on documents to words in queries. We were trying to understand the meanings of queries and the things that they were talking about and find pages that define those things and gave them something better that we can understand about them.
Interesting.
I'm trying to rewrite some of my pages to make the patents all right about main entities of page so that Google understands that I'm writing specifically about certain things, certain patents. There isn't a schema for that. I figured if there was, Google has a Google patent search, so if they use that schema, they would steal everything away from me. Which I guess I could live with if I still showed up in the top results, right?
Sure. Yeah, I don't think that really affects negatively as people think.
No.
Because people that want just a little information, it's just wasted your bandwidth. If they want more, they'll come to it. Right?
I think so. I mean, I've seen differences where you had pages that were transactional mixed with pages that were informational. And sometimes people would click on the informational page, read it, and then come back to the search results and choose a transactional result because they couldn't transact on the informational page.
Or couldn't find the transaction page from the information page.
Right, because it didn't have a clear call to action.
Right.
Mm-hmm. That does happen.
Oh, I'm sure a lot.
In the context I was thinking of, it was a incorporation business, and it was a division of corporations website that would sometimes outrank us. And when it did, conversions increased because people would read the government page, learn about what they wanted to know about the process, and see where it said you can only become a corporation using the registered agent. So you can't do that here.
Oh, and they go to the first agent they saw underneath that.
Right.
Oh.
So it's good to be number 2.
Sometimes, yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Set up.
Mm-hmm. As a matter of fact, it was preferable to let them outrank us.
Yep.
Which sort of sounds counterintuitive, but sometimes things are.
That's why I always look at the cert and work from that out, because to me, that's the user's experience. When they're on a page, like if you got the third listing, but you got the stars for a rich snippet, that's better than being number 1. Because those stars draw people to that listing.
So people often ask me, what's my favorite ranking tool, SEO tool? And I tell them Google.
Yeah, or the space between my ears. Should try using that tool occasionally.
Right. I mean, I see. Look the terms up you're trying to rank for, and see what else is there.
Yes.
See how you fit in.
Or reverse engineer the guy that's number 1. That's how you take his place. Do it better.
Sometimes things that are number 1 aren't necessarily doing things really well. It's just the that set of search results isn't really tremendous.
Right. Or they're there because of a few links.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
It's the old, what's preferable, good content or good links to your content? Sometimes it's having the good content because you can have pretty bad stuff with good links pointing to it.
Right. But it's hard to get good links if you don't have good content. You would think.
You would think, yeah.
Other things come into play. Often money.
Pretty much, yeah. Hmm.
There was a discussion in the dojo on their Facebook page
Yeah.
about indexing and crawling. And someone was trying to say, which I could not wrap my head around, that Google's crawler can now render things.
Okay, so there have been some new videos by a new webmaster evangelist who's talking about JavaScript and crawling.
Right.
And he's talking about how Googlebot's gotten better at crawling because it can render what's on web pages and see what actions things like JavaScript take. You know, like on click actions and things like that. It can get a sense of those.
Okay.
So you may have heard the phrase or term headless browser.
Right.
So it's like Google is using a variation of Chrome to visit web pages. It's like Chrome 74.
So there's no difference between crawling and indexing now.
That's not completely clear because indexing is still done to some degree by caffeine process, which is uh, no, it's a crawling, an incremental crawl. So Google can tell which new things were added to pages and just add the new things.
Right.
So that's what caffeine brought. What this approach with the headless crawler brings is the ability to capture JavaScript actions.
Right. So before they would just get the code for, say, Ajax, right? And then when they rendered it, that's when they executed that code and saw what was there.
Right.
Whereas now, when they're crawling the site, they have that ability to do that there as well. So they must be able to read cookies as well now.
That I haven't seen anybody admit to.
With good reason, probably. But that would make sense that if they can execute Java with the crawler, they must be able to look at the cookies as well.
I remember working on a site where users had to enter a zip code to get results to like see certain weather conditions in different places. And they wanted that capability, they wanted that information crawled. As far as I know, Googlebot wasn't going to be entering zip codes into a field anytime soon, anywhere.
No, but if you had a drop down with those values in, it seemed to do those kind of calculations.
It's possible. Not the way that site was set up.
Oh, okay.
You know, that was like 5 years ago, so not something I'm too concerned about now. But it was like the expectations behind the people who built that site wanting that information crawled were just a little bit too much at that point in time.
Yeah. That will get you into trouble usually, anyhow. Because you'd have to give it almost an infinite loop to work through.
Mm-hmm.
So their spider at some point would say, what the heck is going on here? This goes on forever. I've seen that with calendars.
Yeah.
The calendar will just keep going and going, keep adding dates as long as you'll, and they didn't bother to put an end date.
It's an infinite loop, yeah.
Yep. So Google just kept, eventually they stopped going to that.
Yeah.
They avoided it because of the trap and gave them errors on their page. In I forget where I found a problem in Webmaster Tools. I found something that told me they had to fix that.
There was a message in Webmaster Tools that covered that. I'd never seen one.
Oh, I was looking at the indexing. That's what it was.
Yeah.
And figured out, oh, it's just skipping all these pages. Then I looked at the code and said, oh, this is why.
When you do a crawl, like on the Streaming Frog or a Xenu link sleuth, and you see these URLs or have a parameter after parameter added to them, and they're like
infinite.
Extremely long, yeah.
Well, there was you could back in earlier versions of IIS, and you could request any page, and if the coding that was done for that page was not correct, it would just keep creating these pages, empty pages. We discovered that that's how people were doing negative SEO on those kinds of sites. Create so many pages, right, with links to them from other places that Google quit really indexing what was important.
You have a link on a page that ends with HTML/.
Yes.
Like that's an invitation to do infinite crawling.
Well, or also it took any code, right? So it didn't say, if I don't find the SKU in the database, don't make a page say this page is a 404. But it actually made a page with nothing in it.
Yeah.
Which would cause all kinds of problems down there. All different names. And it was even harder because the firm that was doing it were removing their links after Google found them. So when you went to look at the page that referred them there, the link was gone. They must have known when Google indexed their page or crawled their page and removed the link after it crawled it. That'd be pretty simple. Submit it through Webmaster Tools. Watch for it to come and get it. Remove the link.
How do you like the new Webmaster Tools?
Hate it. Absolutely, almost useless.
They have been adding features to it.
Well, it didn't have any, so it's not hard to add some.
Right.
Like, for instance, I used to do every month, take my sitemap there, test it, and submit it.
Yeah.
I like to test it because it would tell me when there was bad stuff in it. You know, so yeah, they dropped that. Now you can submit one, but if you can't test it, what's the point?
Gentlemen.
Hey, Doc, how you doing?
Oh, I'm doing crazy fighting computer problems the last couple of days, and I just had my tech here delivering my new system and bringing me another monitor.
Knock on wood, I haven't had computer problems.
Well,
I added a bunch of RAM, and it's working fine.
Yeah, I kind of give them a workout. So the last one lasted me 8 years, running at about 18 hours a day, 7 days a week. So can't bitch about that.
No.
Anyway, I'll be off camera because I'm also trying to feed my face here. I haven't even had breakfast yet, and it's already after lunch.
Oh, no.
Are you been, T?
Okay. No sense complaining.
Never does any good.
That's right.
And you're single. If you were married, it would do even less good.
That's probably why I'm not married.
That's a pretty good reason. So what's been new and exciting this week?
We were just griping about the Google Search Console.
Plenty to talk about there.
So I'm not sure why they needed to change the name either. I was fine with Webmaster Tools.
Yeah.
Well, because there are no tools now, Bill. You
Well,
just
there you go.
console, you get to look at it.
Cutting right to the heart of it, eh, Terry?
That'd be it.
Well, the other, I don't know. I don't understand why. I mean, we got supposedly a collection of some of the greatest engineering minds in the country, and it never occurred to them to fucking build it, test it, and then launch it. Kind of got the cart before the horse there.
Yeah, but why even change? Like, this is what I don't understand. They change for the sake of change, it seems sometimes.
Well, yeah, and I agree, but I think sometimes there's probably things behind the curtain that we don't know about. That they might be trying to integrate it into some future plan or product they're going to have.
Oh, but, so you're saying they're hiding everything right now?
Nah, they would never. No, the thing is, they don't want to let us know too much about what they're doing because they're going to shut it down in a year anyway.
Yeah.
So I thought Webmaster Tools were supposed to help webmasters make sure they had well-functioning sites that would help Google make money by giving people a reason to search for those and click on ads.
So how's that tooth fairy thing working out for you, Billy?
Well, I think pointing at Google's motivation to make money with advertisement isn't really a tooth fairy thing.
Well, they're doing pretty good at making money. You got to give them that. But I've always thought that making it easier for us to comply with their guidelines made their job easier.
Agreed.
Yeah, but there wasn't really anything in there that helped you comply with guidelines.
Well, in the old WMT there was.
Pardon me?
In Webmaster Tools there was some. Not exactly a flood of assistance, but there were some tools in there that were helpful. But like the one tool right now that I would find to be helpful would be PageSpeed. And it's the least reliable tool they've published in the last 5 years and remains so.
Yeah, I use other sites now.
Oh, God, yeah. It's all over the map. I have run a half a dozen tests of the same page in rapid succession. I mean, within a period of 2 minutes, and getting different results by 3 or 4 times as long on different loads. And same time I'm running it through GT metrics or web page test, and I'm getting good standard, relatively stable results time after time. And if you get 2 in a row that are even close on Google's tool, you're lucky.
Yeah, I didn't like it because the compression that it expected on images was fucking, excuse my language, ridiculous.
Yeah.
Like they were dithered. When you finally got it down to what they said it should be, you could see the image was degraded.
Pixelated.
Badly. Yeah.
So I said, well, this tool is useless. Something's not right here. I use a couple more now because that's what I'm doing on speed is really important. Because I didn't think I would ever see where speed was a factor in ranking, but I think when you get into pretty competitive areas, it can play a big part.
Well, yeah, and even if it doesn't directly impact ranking, it still directly impacts the business with the users. If your page is taking 9 seconds to load, you're going to be losing business.
Yeah.
If your page is taking 9 seconds to load, to people in areas that are more rural that don't have high speed connections, it's taking much longer than 9 seconds.
Oh yeah, there's still a lot of places in the country that are on 3G. And I think Steve would probably kill to get 3G. Of course, some days I think Steve might just kill for the fun of it.
Maybe. So, did you guys see Jason Bernard's article about Google ranking, sort of a multi-stage query processing?
I haven't had a chance to read it. I bookmarked it, but I haven't had a chance to see it yet.
It's based on stuff that Gary told him about what he would teach new search engineers at Google about how Google ranks things. And it's like 7 or 8 different ranking factor concepts. Each gets scored, and the final score for a page may be based on multiplying all those numbers together. So
Okay.
one of the pages scores less than a 1. The final score based on multiplication can be really low.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's a good way of factoring stuff. Well, a mechanical engineer is looking at the structural integrity of a bridge or any steel structure. That's the way you do it. Each different component has a factor, and you multiply one times the other. And if you end up with a 0.9, it won't even hold up its own weight reliably. Okay.
Right.
Because if you get 1 week, if you've got bad rivets or you don't have good overlaying contact rather, then you're going to have a low number, and you're going to actually degrade the whole thing. That makes sense. From an algorithmic standpoint, it makes perfect sense.
So the analogy they made in that article was the student who gets all C's is doing better than the student who gets 5s, A's and an F.
Mm-hmm.
I think that makes sense.
Yeah, I do too.
Yeah.
And I think that's a good way to, when they're trying to assess or match to a query on the fly,
Yeah.
then that's a good way to scale it. Because you've got, if you're looking at 60 or 100 or 300 factors, and most of them are staying stable across a query change or across a field of competitors, and only one makes a major change, that's a quick, scalable computation. That does make a lot of sense. By the way, did you guys see that yesterday they came out with a new 2019 Raiders Guide?
Yeah, I saw that.
I downloaded it, but I haven't had a chance to look at it.
I think Jennifer Slegg wrote a article about it already,
Cool.
where she explains the differences
Yeah,
between
she
this
did a
one
really
and
good
the
one
last
last
one.
year.
Yeah. I think Marie Haynes has also written something up about it. It's a little bit less eat and a little bit more page quality. So they're moving away from the concept of eat a little bit.
That's interesting. It's kind of surprising. God, I hope that they don't move so far away from it.
Before.
Say again, Terry?
Not when you overweighted it before.
Well, I may have to eat some crow because old Mike Martinez was listing a bunch of stuff on Facebook the other day of garbage claims that SEOs make about what are ranking factors. And the vast majority of them, I certainly agreed with, but one of them was that EAT has anything to do with rankings. And I kind of pushed back on that. I may have to eat some crow with it.
No. It's one thing to say. It's one thing to say that it's decreasing. It's another to say it's not
Oh, I'm sure it's
a factor at all.
no. I don't recall exactly how he worded it. The way I read it was he was saying it had not a goddamn thing to do with ranking, which is why I pushed back.
If you use the words eat or expertise, authoritativeness, and trustworthiness as ways to define what you want people to build into their websites, you're sort of pigeonholing yourself to something really narrow. When you use quality as a word to define what you want, you can have something much broader.
Well, very, too broad. I think that's kind of a catch-all.
Could use both, like I said. When you look at the last Raiders Guide, it really overdid authoritativeness to the point that it almost looked like they wanted you to have links from doctors' articles, their accreditation, etc. I think it depends on the industry, and they probably loosened it in some places.
Well, yeah, I think certainly it would have to depend on the niche, I think, because, if you're talking about economics or education or medicine, my blessing your content is validated is not going to mean shit, as opposed to coming from a lawyer or a doctor or an educator,
Right. I thought it was a good idea that they kind of count the person who has it as being for medical right? That people who have a disease be treated kind of like with authority, and they drop that.
Yeah, I kind of had doubts about that when I first read it, because certainly there are some sufferers of some conditions who have become, lay authorities. But there's an awful lot of them too that couldn't spell their own disease, much less explain it. And so to say that just because this person has fibromyalgia, they should be considered an authority on the disorder, I don't think was a very good idea.
Right. And I also think it's the type of information you're giving out. The examples I came across were kind of coming across as like scientific information.
Mm.
Right. And it was based on their thinking. Really accredited.
Yeah, that's a real slippery slope.
To me, it looked like, if you're going to do that, you got to watch what you're doing and not be suggesting what to take, etc. And that's what that guy was doing.
That just sounds like a very, very slippery slope there.
Yeah, but
It's like reading the reviews for supplements in Amazon.com.
yeah,
They're all lay doctors.
or just gym monkeys. I can press 450 pounds, bench press 450. So therefore I can tell you what kind of diet you should be treating your diabetes with so that you can go to the gym and get results. That's a good way to put some people in the grave.
I think so. Uh-huh.
God, I love this, having 3 monitors again.
Fine with one big one. Need to mirror this monitor. It's good size, but I've got a TV right in front of me too. Should be mirroring this monitor onto the TV.
Well, I got a 27, a 20, and a 17. No, I'm sorry, it's a 19. I like it having separate because I can extend them, but I can keep what I want focused on each side. And I got a nice big one in the middle that I can work on graphics and stuff. It's nice. I just get tired of having to alt tab all the time to find shit.
I get a 24-inch.
That's a nice size.
Yeah. It's good enough to let me show 2 pages worth of documents at the same time, which is really ideal.
Mm-hmm. Well, if my local computer tech had a website, which he doesn't, I would talk him up and brag on it, because he did a hell of a job for me. My hard drive died, and he has this transparent bag that he works with. He puts his hands, it zips up around his wrist, and he puts the disk drive inside, and he opens it up, and he was able to move my disks from my bad drive into a new drive that had good bearings and motor and all. And it's not only salvaged my data, I'm running on that hard drive right now. Cost me about $20.
Well,
which is opposed to $2,500 to send it off to a clean room and be told at the end of it that we couldn't save any of it, but here's your invoice anyway. Yeah.
which are the stories I've heard about those types of conditions, but never had to experience in person.
I had the company I was working for many years ago in LA, and this is back in the mid '90s. They had everything, sales, accounting, everything was on one huge mini computer. And this was running I think they're like 11 and a quarter inch disc packs. It has like a stack of like 6 or 8 discs in the disc pack. And it crashed. And on those things, of course, you've got heads in between all those discs. So when they crash, what happens is they bang and they create a nice ding on every single disc, which makes the disc basically unreadable for thousands of sectors, So they said will find a shop that can maybe salvage what we can, get the thing out, send it off to them, see what it's going. $4,500 to investigate. They came back with a quote for $11,000, and they figured they could probably save half of it. Which half? Can't tell you that until we get it. So we just started from scratch. We just contacted all of our customers and said, "Send us what you got." And we did on the honor system. We don't figure we really lost a hell of a lot, but it took hundreds and hundreds of man hours to put the system back together. But as opposed to spending $4,500 for a quote and another $11,000 to see if they can get any results, the president about threw his damn lamp at me when I told him what they quoted.
I had to rescue a couple of websites using the Internet Archives to rebuild pages.
Yeah, I had to do that before. Yeah, those clean room operations are expensive. And he told me when he did this, he says, this is a whole lot better than doing it here on a workbench, but don't think that getting inside this plastic bag is as good. It may, just one little grain of crap gets in there can cause a head crash down the road. I said, if they can just let me read the data one time, I'll be happy. But I put a new terabyte in here just in case and put Windows on that too. So if it does crash, all I got to do is change my config. But now I got a spare computer.
It's amazing the sizes that most computers are coming with hard drives built into them.
Built in?
Yeah.
I don't think I like that much. I like being able to customize a little bit. If they start building in a 1 terabyte SSD drive, I might not complain too much. So, God, those things they've gone up rather than down. I swear to God, kind of like trying to buy a graphics card. Graphics card that used to cost you $180 is now like $580, thanks to your Bitcoin jugglers.
Well, that's the secret behind neural networks and machine learning, right? Run everything through the graphics card except graphics.
Somehow that makes a scary amount of sense. The fact that it makes any sense probably doesn't speak well of my sanity either. But that's an awful lot of resource that usually, unless you're a gamer, is just sitting there going to waste. Some of these graphic cards, they got they got more power than they do on the motherboard,
Yeah.
I saw one the other day. It was like $1,300 and change, and it had 4 quad-core processors and 16 gig of RAM.
Imagine these guys who were doing machine learning and artificial intelligence during the 80s and 90s who came up with things like neural networks and never crossed their mind to hook that up to a gaming notebook with NVIDIA cards in it
Yeah.
until people in NVIDIA started touting those chips for machine learning.
Well, you got to give credit to folks that can think outside the box like that. You know? But again, they sure drove the price up on the damn things and lead time. There was a EVGA card that I was looking at that was normally is like $860. They had it marked down to 510 or something like that. But it was like a 48-hour sale, and it had a 4-week lead time. Used to be, your local shop would have 8 different versions on the shelf, and they were all under $200.
Those are the reason to go into Best Buys a few years ago.
Mm-hmm. Or Fry's. You got a Fry's up there in Carlsbad, don't you?
It's one in San Marcos.
Have you ever gone in there?
No.
Well, leave your credit card at home, because unless you have a very strong constitution, you'll come back deeply in debt. It's like taking a kid to Toys R Us the first time. I guess that makes me crazy.
Do they have any computer conferences around here where they have people, original equipment parts manufacturers, selling
I don't
parts
know.
at low prices?
I don't know. There used to be an offshoot. I'm going back 30 years. There was an offshoot of the National Computer Conference that had California events. So they were based in San Diego, but they used to do LA and Long Beach and Santa Barbara now and then. I don't know if they even still exist. And they were very, very heavily oriented towards hardware. There's some software stuff there too. Of course, that's back before the day of SaaS. But the hardware guys are what financed that whole damn thing.
Yeah, I remember going to one of these computer shows and finding RAM at $1 a megabyte and celebrating.
Oh yeah.
Now you buy RAM in gigabytes, right?
Yeah. I one time ordered some RAM at work, and I ended up paying $90 a meg. That's 30 some years ago, but $90 a meg, and I just bought 16 gig for like $128. And I probably didn't get a great price.
So that's about close to what I sent to Crucial for the RAM I bought. So I increased mine from 16, no, from 12 to 32.
Mm-hmm. I saw something the other day. I get these emails from Fry's on specials that they're running about every day, I guess. And they had these little, how you buy the mini SSD that's got the little, it's just a holder for a micro.
Yeah.
They got these micros now, 64 gig. For this thing that's smaller than my thumbnail. And I still have a couple of old USB sticks that I still use now and then. I think one of them is 4 and one of them is 8. They're the size of my whole thumb. I was talking to the guy that owns the tech shop here yesterday when I spent most of the day over there with him reconfiguring my new system. And he's been around in IT since the early 90s. He got into it, got out of school in 92 and walked right into his first job. He was working in Dallas for a company called Timeshare. who used to be a client of mine when I was with Excite Electronics, and they were one of the biggest timeshare computer rooms in the country at the time. And some of the shit we got talking about old machines, you know. He had me beat, and this kid's only, I say kid, he's like 55. He's more than 10 years younger than me. But of course, he got deeper into it and earlier than I did. He's definitely seen some shit that I had heard about and never seen. But he was working in IBM mainframes and Amdahl mainframes, 415 hertz stuff.
IBM just bought Cray supercomputers.
Oh, did they?
For over $200 million. Yeah.
That's not very damn cheap. Not very expensive, really, for Cray.
Yeah.
That's surprising. I wonder if they're either deep in debt or have really dropped in their market share, because I would have figured they'd be over $1 billion.
I guess maybe there's not too much of a demand for supercomputers these days.
Well, in terms of volume, I suppose not. You'd think just the NSA could keep them in business for a while.
Load up a PC with NVIDIA graphics cards. What more do you need?
Well, you're sure talkative today, Terry.
Yeah.
If you shut up and let somebody else get a word in edgeways, man. You guys warmed up there yet?
Nope. And the heat's off here.
Oh. Well, I'm not wearing my fingerless gloves today, but I was right before I logged in. I said, no, I got to have Terry give me a bunch of shit. I'll take these things off.
Yeah, it's not really cold, just, not comfortable.
Not late May weather either.
No, it's cold for this time of year. But
well, listen to the talking heads. In a couple of years, we'll all have 16 feet of ocean over our heads. We won't have to worry about it. That'll be a relief, eh?
So I have beachfront property, huh?
There you go. Yeah, in Dallas. Well, if I was 17 years old, I'd probably be worried about it. But I figure the 3 inches it might rise in the next 20 years isn't likely to cause me a whole lot of concern.
they'll probably do something before the dam breaks. Just putting fingers in holes right now. Eventually, they'll fix it.
You have more confidence in their thinking ability than I do then.
Well, I think at some point, people realize that. Even the Chinese won't realize. Can't keep. You keep burying your shit in your living room. Eventually, it's going to stink.
Well, to give credit where it's due, and I've looked at this a good bit over the last few months, in terms of which countries are doing what about global warming and pollution and fresh, potable water and all that. China has decreased their carbon footprint overall by 70% in the last 10 years.
Yeah, and it's still probably 10 times more than the States are here.
No. It's nowhere near what we do in the States. But I mean, 70% over a decade, that's pretty, especially when we realize how totally out of control, not give a shit, flooded all with coal they were. That's an amazing piece of progress. They're doing quite a bit, considering how rustic they were when they first started doing it. You know, I got to give them credit for that. If we could put forth a fourth of the effort they are, we'd be in good shape. We're not putting forth any effort. We're getting at best some lip service during campaign year.
We're going backwards.
Yeah. You know, that we make all kinds of promises until we get elected, and then suddenly it goes to the back burner and never gets any action.
They're saving coal miners' jobs. The coal miners don't even want to go back to.
Yeah, no shit. Yeah, I've got this great case of unfinished black lung. I sure would like to wrap that up, you know?
They shut down all the coal hydro plants here.
All of them? Good.
In Ontario, I don't know about elsewhere. I bet you can find them in New Brunswick. Or, you know, where they mine.
Well, from what I'm seeing, from a political standpoint, Canada probably stands a better chance than any other country of setting an example that the United States might be tempted to try to emulate. So, you know, if you guys do that, you shut down all your coal plants, and then 3 or 4 years down the road, you can show a dramatic improvement. That might get through to some of the talking heads down here. At least long enough to get their attention away from the big purse of the lobbyist who's financing their campaign, you know.
Yeah. You know, it's all money and politicians. You know. That's why drugs are more expensive in the United
This is why God gave us long-range rifles. That'll get me a black van out in the driveway.
It's that Mexican insurgent again.
There you go. They're taking numbers. The line forms around the corner.
Build the wall. Hurry.
Well, I cheated myself out of some time here by showing up late.
You did.
Damn it. Unfortunately, my tech showed up, and he was supposed to deliver my new computer about an hour before we started here. And he called me postponed, then he couldn't find it, and he ended up showing up here about 10 minutes before you started. In fact, he had just walked into my office when you sent me that first link, Bill.
Oh, no. Well, it's okay. I had no sound. I couldn't hear. I had to restart.
Did you have to go to Firefox?
I started up in Chrome. So Google Hangouts aren't compatible with Firefox anymore.
At all.
Sort of like,
oh, that's right.
Sort of like
right.
Internet Explorer or Edge. Edge gives you that message.
Yeah.
This software doesn't work in this product. Use Internet Explorer instead.
And that's fairly recent too, because when you and I first started having sound problems here, when you and I first started having sound problems about 3 months ago, Bill,
yeah,
I was able to open up in Edge and I was able to open up in Firefox. Okay, I still had the sound problems. You know, when you couldn't hear me, I had the same sound problem on all three of them, but I could open up the Hangout in all three. And so that's like maybe 3 months ago, if that. It was just before you went over to Italy, I think.
So they've updated the YouTube Hangout process.
Updated, is that what they're calling it?
The Creative Studio is in a new version. And I had to log in using the Classic Creative Studio. They had a link to on the bottom of the page. So as I logged out of that, they stopped me to ask me if I wanted to take a survey on a new creative studio.
Oh, you don't want to hear this. Gonna get ugly in here.
Yeah.
Maybe we ought to form our own group of civilian user raters and rate Google and their properties and
Google
publish
quality,
the hell out of it.
Google Quality Raiders Guide. Yeah.
There you go.
Uh-huh.
That would be fun if nothing else. Might not be productive, but it would sure as hell be entertaining.
It could
And
be.
I don't think we'd have any trouble at all getting participants either.
We could let it leak to the public.
Yeah, on a front page ad.
Mm-hmm.
That's an evil idea. I like it.
Well, the next hangout is number 200.
Ooh, bicentennial.
Yeah.
Somebody's gonna have to bring some donuts and ice cream.
Might have to engage in adult beverages.
There you go.
Yeah.
You know, I'm not a big fan of adult beverages, of course.
Uh.
Yeah, maybe we can get your sidekick to show up.
Maybe. Let's try that.
Yeah.
Think I've seen signs of life.
Yeah. You just I saw him posting
UK?
yesterday. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll ping him. You ping him. We'll get Oprah Winfrey to ping him.
Will she appear in the hangout?
I haven't got an answer back yet.
Oh, okay. Well, I think that's our time for today. So I'm going to shut this down. We'll wave to everybody. Bye now.
Bye,
Thank you.
everybody.